Okay, good morning everyone. Thanks for coming to today's call-in meeting of the Adults Health and Active Lifestyle Scrutiny Board. I'm Andrew Scopes, I'm a councillor for Beeson Holbeck and I'm the chair of this scrutiny committee. Today's meeting is slightly different to most of our meetings. Often our meetings are very cordial and sort of agreed by consensus. Today's a sort of different sort of format. There will be a formal vote. There'll need to be a proposer and a seconder and a motion, and we'll get to that later on. As always, though, this is a public meeting, and so members of the public are able to watch in the gallery and or online, either live or later on. So we're on YouTube, so that's an important element. When you speak, please use your microphone and then turn it off. And I'm also going to be more strict than usual to make sure ask you to come through the chair before you come in and speak, just so we have an orderly, respectful debate, because obviously this is as you would expect on a call, in a sensitive topic that we need to take seriously and respectfully. Okay, so I'm going to start now with some introductions. So as I said, I'm Andrew Scopes. I'm the councillor for Beeson Holbeck and I'm the chair of this board. I'm going to start with the councillors and members of the committee, and then I'll ask other people to introduce themselves in due process. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Councillor James Gibson. I'm a member for Crossgates and Winmore Ward.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Andy Rowntree. I'm councillor in Kirkstall Ward.
Good morning. I'm Eleanor Thompson, councillor for Guiseley and Rawdon, and substituting for Councillor Francemeer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Taylor, and I represent Chapel Allerton Ward.
Good morning, my name is Isaac Wilson. I'm councillor for Wheatwood Ward and I'm substituting for Councillor Ritchie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Mashenko. I'm co-chair of Health Watch Leeds and I'm a co-opted member and a non-voting member.
Good morning, I'm Councillor David Blackburn, Farnley and Wortley Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Conrad Hartbrook at Rothwell Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Lynn Buckley, Alwoodley Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Caroline Anderson representing Adlon Wharfdale Ward.
Good morning, I'm Angela Brogden, the Principal Scrutiny Advisor to the board.
Good morning, Nicole Walker, Legal Advisor to the board.
And Councillor Bromley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Councillor Bromley for Horsforth and Rawdon. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much. Could I invite the other members to introduce other guests, introduce themselves? If we start with Norman and work our way down. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Norman Forsyth, a service user at Stockshill Mental Health Hub.
Morning, everyone. I'm Lou Cunningham. I'm Green Councillor for Armley Ward.
Good morning. I'm Caroline Barrier. I'm the Director for Adults and Health.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carla Gallant. I'm Head of Service for Care Delivery in Adults and Health.
Good morning. I'm Shona McFarlane. I'm Deputy Director for Adults and Health.
Good morning. I'm Laura Mitchell-Gaffar, Legal Advisor to the service.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Salma Arif. I'm the Exec Member for Adult Social Care, Active Lifestyles and Culture.
Okay, thank you everyone for that. Just those guests, when you are speaking later on, please can you just move your microphone a bit closer, so those of us who can't hear quite as well as we used to can still hear. Mentioning no names at all. There you go. And maybe online people might be able to hear us better. Okay, I'm going to start by what we not usually do is we've got some sort of our standard items and ask Angela to run through those, please.
Thank you, Chair. So in relation to item 1, there are no appeals. In relation to item 2, there are no items requiring the exemption of the public. In relation to item 3, there are no late items. And at item 4, can I ask members at this point to disclose any interests in accordance with the Leeds City Council Code of Conduct, please? And I shall take silence as none. Thank you. In relation to item 5, we have received apologies from Councillor Francis Mayer, and we have Councillor Thompson attending as substitute member, and apologies from Councillor Ritchie with Councillor Wilson attending as substitute member. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item 6, which is the substantive item today. So it starts on page 5 of your agenda pack. The report explains how the call-in request has been arrived and how the procedures in the Constitution have been met by Councillor Cunningham and her colleagues. In terms for the grounds of the call-in, it's set out again in the paper, and it's about procedure rules as well as Article 13 of the Constitution, where relevant issues do not appear to have been taken into consideration, and that's the grounds that Councillor Cunningham has called this in. The call-in is in respect of the Exec Board on the 23rd of April 2025. The relevant call-in request form has been appended to the report, and you'll find that on page 11 of the agenda pack. And then also the main executive report further on in the pack. The call-in request clarifies specific elements that executive board decision can be called in on. In this case, resolution 125, B, C, D and E. These are also highlighted in paragraph 3 on page 6 of the agenda pack. The call-in request form also sets out why, in the opinion of the signatories, Councillor Cunningham and her colleagues, the decision was not taken in accordance with the principles of decision-making, or where relevant issues do not appear to have been taken into consideration. And so it's that process of decision-making that is important for us to consider today. The board is advised that today's meeting specific issues that have been raised in the call-in, not the wider issues. So we're going to try and keep really focused on that. We must decide as a board whether to send it back, which means effectively the Exec Board have asked to look at it again and consider anything additional which we as a board think they should, based on what is presented to us today, or whether we recommend the decision is to be released, and then this decision would be implemented as per the Exec Board decision. The process for producing this again is in the pack, so hopefully it's pretty clear, but I'm just saying it out loud so we all know. If for any reason the board does not agree on those two options, it's released by default. So, but I think we'll probably be able to hopefully come to a decision one way or the other. In terms of the meeting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, in terms of the format, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Lou and Norman to present their case. Because Norman is a guest, it's my discretion about whether he speaks, and I've decided that it would be good for him to be allowed to speak, and but I'm going to time limit him to 4 minutes, so I'll time that on my phone. And so I don't know if Norman's going to speak first, and then Councillor Cunningham. And then once we've done that, we'll let the council and Councillor Harris speak, and then after they've all spoken, we'll go to questions, if that's okay. I think that's pretty clear. Are there any questions on that process? Okay, so with that, I think that's over to you, Norman, as a starting, and I'll start a time, and I'll tell you when your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to start with a timeline of the events that unfolded from November last year. The 8th of November, staff at Stockshill were told that the decision had been made to close Stockshill and move service users to Cleverland's Complex Needs Centre in Horsforth. They were instructed not to inform us, the service users. The morning of our Christmas party, management came in and told us that the decision had been made and that we were moving to Horsforth. Originally, the date that staff were given was the 2nd of January. We were told that there would be personal reviews that would include a question asking us how we felt about moving to Horsforth. We were told that the decision was made, which was misinformation, because the decision hadn't been made. The reviews were used as an impact statement to the Executive Board. What I'm asking is, was that impact statement legally taken? Because we weren't told that the reviews and the question about moving to Horsforth was going to be used as an impact statement to the council. When I attended the Executive Board meeting in March, I found out that consultations had taken place. And the consultation is based on the impact statements that was made when we were told that the decision had been made. The council talks about being open, honest and integrity. 3 words. We have seen none of that. There's been no openness to us. There's been no honesty. We're fed misinformation. We find out that the Executive Board in December 2023 had ordered the review into day services. All I'm asking on behalf of the service users is, why don't they talk to us? Nobody comes and talks. I went down this road about 14 years ago, and I was on an advisory board set up by the scrutiny board. And people talked to us. And after that advisory board closed, management in the adult social services continued to talk to us, and then all that went silent. Nobody comes. When we ask for information, sorry, we are not in a position to answer that, but we will ask and try and find out. Nobody ever comes back and tells us. And we just feel that under the Equality Act of 2010, and I don't think that any of the reports really explores that, mental health is a protected item. We're supposed to be treated safely, healthily, and have fulfilled lives in the local community. How does anybody think that Armley is local to Horsforth? Is my time up?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. I gave you a little bit extra, but thank you for sharing that. That's helpful. Okay, over to Councillor Cunningham to present your case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Norman. And thank you to all the other users of Stocks Hill who've taken the time to present information to me. So obviously our call-in asks for a reconsideration of the full 6 locations of the day opportunities services, but our specific focus is upon Stocks Hill. It's already well documented. We know that Armley is identified as a priority neighbourhood with intense need for mental health resources. We know that at the moment there are no other services in West Leeds which replicate the support that happens within the Stocks Hill setting. I think the major concerns about the impact that have been raised to me from the service users are around the process of the assumption that the individual personal reviews were consultation, and that again it's a mismatch between engagement and consultation on behalf of the council. The service users who've spoken to me say that when they had their individual personal reviews, they weren't given open questions about and open discussions around the move. They were already under the impression that the move was taking place, and they were asked questions about how they felt about the service moving to Horsforth. There was not an open option for a comparison of remaining at Stocks Hill. These personal reviews, as Norman said, were then taken to inform the impact statement and then billed as consultation. And the service users do not feel that this was consultation in the true sense of consultation. We feel that within the report there's a lot of emphasis upon friendship groups, and I think that the use of friendship groups in the report undermines the depth of peer support. We know that friendship groups and peer support are completely distinct concepts. Peer support is shared experience, mutual support, safe space for individuals who've got similar experiences to connect. All of this can exist with or without friendship groups, and I think that it's well documented that peer support in mental health not only contributes towards the maintenance of mental health well-being, but also prevents serious relapse of mental health. So we think that the repeated referring of friendship groups takes away from the importance of the established peer support networks. We also believe that had the findings of the impact assessment been presented to scrutiny board, that there would have been a greater level of exploration of the options and the rationale behind both the consultation process and the decisions and the concepts on the table. So just bringing in some of the practical factors around that Stocks Hill has the most number of attendees, and there is also potential plans to use the building of Stocks Hill. We know that that building isn't being sold and has also been potentially earmarked for other services to use. Now, there are clear options that the support groups, the day opportunity groups within Stocks Hill could coexist potentially with other users and other Armley organisations who may well use the Stocks Hill space, and for this to be a shared space. So those things in summary are the basis that we feel that the findings should have been presented to the scrutiny board. We feel that the consultation process was flawed by using the individual personal reviews to inform the impact statement. And we also think that the labelling as friendship groups undermines the value of well-documented and researched peer support, which is a completely distinct concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. I just note that I think you've talked about the consultation. But in your statement, you've also noted proportionality, clarity of aims, and explanation of options considered. I think you've talked about that. I don't know if you want to just touch on proportionality and clarity of outcomes as well, or are you satisfied with? Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to now bring in. Are you going to speak first, Councillor Arif? Bring in Councillor Arif. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Norman and Councillor Cunningham, for your submissions. As mentioned previously in Exec Board, the report demonstrates a cross-portfolio approach to the use of assets, which continues to be a key agenda for the city, in how we work within our community and how we use the buildings available to us to the best effect. Additionally, the opportunities emerging to accelerate progress against the review are worth noting. The specific reference to the sections of the report relevant to my portfolio that have been called in are around the decision to reduce the number of buildings from which in-house day opportunity services operate from 6 to 3. Whilst operational changes to all 6 services are proposed, it is recognised the impact upon people accessing the mental health hubs is more significant than the complex needs centres. The impact specifically upon people accessing Stocks Hill is noted as one of the rationales for the call-in and is recognised, and activity is taken to mitigate the impact that has been undertaken. As detailed in the report, this decision builds on the embedded strengths-based approach taken in adults and health with day services, which has seen the service increasing the use of community and peer groups and developing activities that are community-based and less building-based. We've heard from some people that they have been attending services for peer support for many years, but we also know we have seen a sustained reduction in demand for this type of service, resulting in space being available and under occupancy in buildings. The report gave more detail as to the use of conditions of the various buildings and sets out a clear case for change. In addition to the citywide consultation as part of the budget setting proposal, an extremely comprehensive local consultation exercise has been undertaken with all people who access the 6 services. We know any service or building change can be impactful, and therefore additional attention has been given to work with people in a very individualised way to develop personalised plans to ensure there is no reduction in service offer. A small number of people, primarily from Stocks Hill Hub, have opted to not engage in developing an alternative plan until the decision has been made, though engagement, activity and communication have taken place, such as those detailed in the consultation findings report. The strength of feeling from the consultation feedback is once again acknowledged, in particular from people who access Stocks Hill Hub. Letters and emails were received during the consultation containing many signatures and descriptions of the impact the service relocation would have on people's well-being. In listening to this feedback, other council community spaces local to Armley have been identified at Armley Hub, Armley Children's Centre and Armley Leisure Centre. Other community spaces have also been identified following feedback, such as the Wortley Community Centre, and other exploratory work also continues so that people can be supported on the days and in the areas people told us were most important to them. As a reminder, the 3 complex needs centres received investment, resulting in them being in a really good quality resource with all the facilities that people need, including accessible spaces, changing areas and a choice of rooms for groups and other activities. Bringing these services together also allows for further savings from the staffing budget with no impact on the level of service being provided. In addition, I would direct you to the detail in the report that sets out the consultation, planning, equality impact and risk assessment activity that has already taken place, undertaken to ensure that this change, which makes best use of council assets, will also not leave anyone who uses the service at any disadvantage, and that the council can continue to meet its statutory obligations under the Care Act. Having reviewed all the information, I am confident that through effective planning and further engagement with people who access the services, any outstanding issues can be resolved. Chair, I'm happy for officers to come in terms of any particular questions or just initially make some comments. Thank you.
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind. I think it's really important to start with recognising the impact that this is having on people who currently access the services, particularly in relation to Stocks Hill. We absolutely understand that this level of change can be really disruptive to people, and even more so when people have very specific needs relating to their mental health and the need for that stability and that continuity. So we're absolutely aware of that and mindful of that, and recognise that this is a really difficult decision and set of proposals that we've had to consider. We have considered these for some time, and within the context of as Councillor Arif has said, the reduction in the use of the buildings. The building is only open 2 or 3 days a week for this particular purpose in terms of people requiring mental health support. And also, as Councillor Arif has mentioned and is very well documented, the cost of maintaining the buildings is quite considerable. It's not of a high grade. It hasn't had lots of investment, and it will cost the authority considerably financially to maintain the buildings as well. So part of that has had to be part of the consideration. What we've wanted to do right from the onset is to talk to people who currently use the services to consider options that are alternatives. So Councillor Cunningham referred to the option of maintaining use of the site as not being one of the options considered. And you know, we would agree with that. We did consider options that were alternatives to maintaining use of Stocks Hill. Initially, we were looking at the option of using the Horsforth site, but recognised that people said they wanted a local base, a base in Armley. As a result of that, officers have done a whole load of work to try and find the most suitable alternative bases, very, very close to the Stocks Hill's proximity, and buildings that would facilitate groups so that various people who have got peer networks and friendship circles can continue to meet as a group of people within one site. And that option has absolutely been considered and indeed taken up by quite a lot of the people. At the moment, there are in the region of about 68 people that use the Stocks Hill venue for meeting. Majority of them are for peer support. Out of those 68, by far the majority of people have looked at and considered the different options that have been presented to them for their continued support needs. And only 7 out of the 68 people have actually decided that they don't really want to look at alternatives. So we've been speaking with the individuals since pre-Christmas, pre the report going to exec board, and then subsequently to full council. And there have been various consultations. You'll see that in the appendix in the papers, something in the region of, just quote it, 645 instances of consultation, discussion. And the consultation was about alternative options that were available, not specifically about whether to remain utilising the Stocks Hill building. I just want to come back to the point that we absolutely understand that this is a difficult decision and difficult for people who currently and have continued to use the site for a long time. But we genuinely think that we've consulted with people about the alternative options that are available and have made available within very close proximity alternative sites where they can continue to meet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to questions from members if you want to indicate, and I'll bring you in as I see you. Okay, so I'll start with Councillor Blackburn.
Some of the arguments you just made don't, to me, apply to Stocks Hill. I mean, what is the logic we're moving from Stocks Hill? You say you only use it a couple of days a week, but we are going to continue using that building, so that means we must be putting investment into that building. So that your argument falls down there. So on that basis, why are you doing that? That is the one that is used the most. And secondly, in the report that you went to Executive Board, it constantly says one of alternatives, Wortley Community Centre. There ain't such a place as Wortley Community Centre. There's Lower Wortley Community Centre that's in my ward, and there's New Wortley Community Centre that's in Councillor Cunningham's, but there ain't a Wortley Community Centre, and there's a lack of clarity on that alone. It's not a good report.
Is that a question or a statement? Statement.
That's a bit of a statement.
Yeah.
A question. I mean,
Put your mic back on.
Are we talking about New Wortley, and what's logic about closing Stocks Hill?
So we are indeed talking about New Wortley Community Centre, and we know that some of the people that are currently using Stocks Hill have opted to use that venue, that site, including people with who are a circle of support for one another, so not just individuals. So it's been an option that has actually been favoured by some people. Councillor Blackburn, in terms of your question around the continuing use of the building, at this moment in time, we're certainly not aware what purpose it will be used for. It won't be used for adult social care, so for people who have particular disabilities and particular accessibility needs. So at this moment in time, I can't address the question you ask about whether there will be a requirement to upgrade the building. But at this moment in time, we're not clear around the purpose and use of it going forward.
Caroline Anderson, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just first of all say thank you to Norman for coming along this morning and telling us about your experience, because it's not easy to come and speak in front of a scrutiny board like this. So thank you, Norman. Can I just ask... Oh, sorry, I was just thanking you, Norman, for coming along today and speaking to us, because it's not easy to do that. So thanks for that. Can I just ask if Norman is correct that they were told a decision had been made back in January? And is this another example of the council just ignoring consultation and predetermining what's going to happen to people? And then maybe, Norman, if you could maybe just in a couple of sentences tell us what Stocks Hill means to you and what support you get there. Thank you.
I'm going to bring in Caroline first and then come to you, Norman. Thank you.
Thank you. So the decision hadn't been made, but what we had proposed was the closure of Stocks Hill, and the overall the assessment around buildings usage and looking at options of ensuring that we make the best of the buildings that we have got and use, optimise the use of buildings, because obviously they are costly. And we were looking at recognising that the Stocks Hill building, the number of people using that building was higher than some of the others, but also considering the fact that the state of the building was not as high grade as the three complex hubs. And that's why we were looking at Stocks Hill as one of the three venues that we were looking to cease using. The decision, therefore, hadn't actually been made, but that's what we were proposing to do, to utilise three of the complex instead of the three mental health hubs. And the consultation was to consider the alternatives. I hope that answers the question for Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. And then, Norman, you can respond to Councillor Anderson's question as well. Thank
you. The alternative buildings. The one-stop centre were being put into a basement. They haven't carried out and written up a health and safety assessment. There is one emergency removal chair to get people with mobility up the steps to get to the fire exit. we've got...
Sorry, Norman. So the question was, can you summarise, can you explain in
Right.
2 sentences what Stock Hill means to you? I think you're talking about a different centre there.
I'm just trying to...
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess in the meeting, what I need you to do is just respond to the questions you asked. Thank you.
Stocks Hill helped me and still helps me through a difficult period. They give me support, continuous support, and without that support, I don't know where I would be. The question of what do we get and how is the building used? They tell us that we only use the building 3 days a week. The building is used 5 days a week with other agencies coming in.
Norman, sorry to cut across
Yeah.
again. That, I guess if someone asks that, we can come back to that.
Right.
But we'll just
Okay,
stick
then.
to the
Thank you.
questions. Thanks, Norman. Okay, do you have a supplementary, Anderson? No. Okay, Councillor Taylor, please.
Thanks, Chair. The question I'm going to ask adult social care, but it's what Norman suggested earlier. Earlier, Norman says there was no consultation with the service user until it's all out in the public. Didn't you think it was right? Not because the service users is mental health environment, but you think it's right to sit with the service users before you put it out for consultation. As Norman highlighting the benefit that he have, they might be have mental health issue, but they have knowledge as well. So I think, why did you not speak to them before it goes out to consultation and shared with them your intention and get some ideas from them what would work with them?
Okay, thank you. I think it's really important through...
Just move your mic a bit closer, please. Thank you.
So in listening to feedback, we listen to our workforce and staff who know the people who attend the mental health hubs the best. And some of that feedback has been around how protracted the process of the consultation and then the council's processes through change has been, and that's actually had the detrimental impact upon people's well-being. So in listening to staff in them very early conversations, as Caroline mentioned, pre-executive board in December, there was conversations around anxieties that they would increase people's worries and concerns because it's speaking to people just very tentatively before anything's been proposed. So that's one of the rationales for that.
I totally understand what you're saying. I work in mental health all the time, and mental health brought me into politics. There would be anxiousness around it. It's just like me and you, whatever going to happen to us in life. However, they would get over that section, but the anxiousness does come in when you did bring it to them, when it's late. So they feel not a part of the journey. So I think if they knew before, shared with you, this is best, this is not, maybe they collectively. I know the buildings, that's a different issue. I know it needs to close down, but I think they should be a part of the communication. Staff cannot speak so much for the service users, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Do you want to come in, Caroline?
Yeah, I'll come in. I think absolutely, Councillor Taylor. I think it's really important to understand what we're saying about the consultation and the decision-making process. So when we were in the position to consult with people, we have to be honest, what we weren't consulting on the basis of can we and should we keep Stocks Hill open. We were consulting on the basis of what's the impact of a would-be closure or ceasing to provide the service, and what would you want us to consider in looking at alternatives for you. So that was the focus of the consultation, because we weren't consulting on the basis of would you like Stocks Hill to remain a venue from which the service is being provided. So I think it's really important to be clear around the nature of the consultation process itself.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Rowntree.
Thank you, Chair. With your permission, there's a question I'd like to put to Caroline and also one to Councillor Cunningham. Thank you. Caroline, I just wonder, given what we've been saying about Stocks Hill, could you perhaps give some examples of why, specifically, why the building is less suitable than the complex needs hubs? I mean, I know we've sort of generally talked about the financial side, but specifically, what's wrong with Stocks Hill as a building as it exists currently?
I will let Carla in because she knows the buildings much better than I do. But in reality, it's because when we were weighing up between how many venues we would want to continue to use based on usage, and came to the position that we would be able to facilitate everybody from 3 venues rather than 6. We looked at different options of which ones would be best to maintain and which ones best to close. And the complex buildings have had various upgrades, including the installation of changing places, facilities. They're just of a really good standard because we've invested in those buildings. We haven't made the same sorts of refurbishments of the 3 mental health buildings, and they were scheduled to be, but financial circumstances have meant that we can't keep putting money into buildings that are not really sort of financially viable or feasible for the purpose of running day services. But I'm going to let Carla in just to explain a little bit more around your specific question around what is it around Stocks Hill that is not as good as the complex buildings.
Thank you, Caroline. I'll just, for awareness, the 3 complex needs centres received some capital investment. It was a number of years ago now, 2017, but they've remained a very high standard. The main standout component being accessibility. So they have registered changing places, large facilities for people who live with disabilities that can go, and they're also open to members of the public as registered changing places as well. There's lots of similarities, so there are lots of spaces and rooms similar to Stocks Hill that, say, Calverlands, for example, also offers. But the buildings are finished to a higher specification, the internal furnishings. And I recognise that buildings and furnishings are not always important to people, but I think we need to recognise that capital investment and to better utilise the complex needs centres, because as well as the mental health hubs, those 2 are underutilised, and it is about all 6 buildings and better utilising our spaces. So it is the finish and the investments that's the primary focus.
Thank you. So is it the case then that with the complex needs centre it would be more accessible perhaps to people who are not using the service at the time? Would it make any difference to people who are current users of the service?
Apologies, could you repeat that?
Sure. You focused, I think, on the accessibility of the complex needs centres, the work that's been done there, the availability of changing places, toilets and that. Are we saying that this would be as a benefit to current users of the service, or simply that it's, as a higher spec it is more accessible to people who may need to use that building in the future?
So I'll come in on that. The alternative would have been the closure of the complex needs buildings, and we would not be able to accommodate people with complex needs in the mental health hubs because they're not suitable facilities.
Okay, thank you. Can I put my question to Councillor Cunningham then, please? I was just thinking about what you were saying about the distinction between peer support and friendship groups, which I do understand. I mean, clearly it's a different dynamic. what I'm wondering is, do you feel that in the other locations, it wouldn't be possible for the peer support groups model to survive? Because I'm thinking that we would be broadly talking about the same group of people, wouldn't we? Do you not think it would work? What's your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rowntree. I think the service users who have made contact with me feel that the current use of, I guess we're going back to Stocks Hill as a building, the facilities that are available in Stocks Hill are completely different to those that would be available, for example, in the basement of the library building or in New Wortley Community Centre. So in Stocks Hill, there are large areas where people there are workshop areas, there are cooking areas, there are relaxation areas, there are areas where people can also like have a cinema day, and there are lots of other activities that take place within Stocks Hill that could not be replicated in the other building options. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bromley next.
Thank you, Chair. I've 2 questions, if that's okay. Firstly, just with adults and social care, in terms of the questions during the consultation, there's been suggestion that it was like a leading question because it was talking about the move, how do you feel about the move, opposed to would you like it to move or not. And I just wondered if we normally have the question structured like that when it's something under a proposal, and whether that's been conflated as leading rather than how a consultation is normally done when it's a proposal of something occurring.
Thank you. I think, again, I'll come back to the point around the consultation was very specifically about trying to understand the impact on people of a decision to stop using Stocks Hill. So it was not asking people, would you prefer to stay in Stocks Hill or would you prefer to use a different venue? It is our proposal that Stocks Hill will no longer be continued to be used for this purpose. What would the impact be on you? What are the alternatives that you would want us to consider? So it was around. It almost does sound like the decision was taken and then people were consulted, but it's really important to stress that the consultation wasn't about do we close or stop using, should I say, cease using the building. The consultation was, we want to continue to use, to deliver services for you. Your service offer will not change. We will make sure that you get as much of the support that you need, that you've had from this venue. What we're proposing to do is to change the venue from where you will continue to receive services. We will still meet our statutory obligations. We will still provide services to you, albeit from a different venue. What will the impact be? So it's just really trying to understand that was the basis of the consultation.
Thank you. So am I right in thinking that from listening from that feedback is why you've then given alternate venues within Armley to provide those services?
That's right. So initially we were thinking that what we would be offering are the 3 complex needs buildings as alternatives and ceasing to use the 3 mental health hubs. The feedback was we need something local. Some people were very happy to travel to Horsforth. For some people it was closer as an option to go to Horsforth. For other people, they were happy if we sorted out their transport needs. So for a number of people, they thought that would be a suitable option. But what we heard loudly was that a number of people were saying, we want something in the local area. This is where we meet. This is where our friends' circle is. We want to remain here. We don't want to go all over the place and be dispersed. And that's why we then subsequently, as a result of the feedback from what people were saying, we started to look at what alternative sites would be available in Armley.
Yeah, that was a little sub-question underneath my next question. So in terms of then providing those services in a local area, like from a Horsforth perspective, I don't think Calverland's building is maximised for the use that it could possibly be. So, and I totally appreciate the travelling to different areas. We feel it in Horsforth too, because there isn't direct links to other areas that do often hold these services more. So a sense of like people wanting something local, I can completely understand. In terms of those services that we discussed, like the cinema, the having kitchen facilities, are there buildings with all of those amenities that people would be able to access for those different alternative services?
With regarding group and the services that you've just mentioned, the majority are, so, and certainly the complex needs offers like for like, so they've got large spaces and large screens for watching movies, etc. They've got kitchen spaces, so a kind of industrial type kitchen, and then a more kitchenette that service users can use. So the complex needs centres offer like for like. Finding the alternatives in the local areas is proving a little bit more difficult for just one or two of the groups. So the cooking group, for example, is one of those. And staff are working extremely hard with people to continue to look for alternatives in Armley. What's been difficult is we've explored our Leeds City Council services that are available to us, the leisure centre, the hub, etc. But for the independent sector, because the decision hasn't yet been made and we haven't got anything definitive and we don't know we need this on this day for this many people, it's a little bit difficult for staff who are trying to explore that. But a lot of work is underway. So it's primarily the cooking group, but the relaxation group, the arts and crafts group, the chairs-based exercise, the sewing group, all those groups have found alternative suitable venues to for sustainability and for those to continue.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to just move on to Councillor Thompson, but just before I say that, I can see, Norman, that you want to come in. I guess the point about this section of the meeting is the councillors ask questions and the relevant people respond. So I guess that what I'm saying is, unless you get a question, this isn't the point you can speak, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just trying to tell you the process. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Thompson for her questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just going back, it feels like there's been some difference of understanding about the consultation process, that staff perhaps and service users felt like this decision's been made, that's that, we don't feel like we've been listened to. And consultation is always really difficult, but just to get a bit more understanding of what happened would be helpful. What was staff told and what was communicated, as far as we know that. And it's a massive challenge. I think I can see some similarities with the Children's Centre review, that we've got older buildings, we've got changing needs, we've got changing communities. And how do we bring, I think for me the big question is, how do we bring services, trying not to go off track, bring services to where people are rather than take people to where the services are. And I'm encouraged that it feels like quite a bit of work's being done around that, but perhaps the service users aren't feeling that and experiencing that. So a little bit of clarity would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, I'll try to recall, because it's been
Councillor Thompson, can you just turn off your mic? Thank you.
It's been a number of months, so I'll try to recall off the top of my head without consulting my big pile of papers. So when the service review paper was being prepared for budget setting in December, we did meet with staff and say initially this is going to be going live on the public domain for people to see, and this is a proposal around the use of buildings, as Caroline says. Absolutely receptive to the feedback around it can be confusing because it's not around the service stopping, seizing, closing, it's around a relocation, and that's been difficult to keep on track and for people to understand. So we'll take that feedback away. So I can tell you that lots of engagement and lots of consultation took place. So initially with staff November time, then followed by formal letters and engagement and group forums with people who access services, etc. So there's been a very clear timeline of what people are being told, but it's been around the governance processes, so the budget setting proposal, the citywide consultation around that, where people had opportunity to feed in to the proposal, etc., as well as this local consultation. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a question on page 19, paragraph 9. The strategic context is really clear about the principles for the capital receipts programme and buildings. And I guess I just wanted confirmation about whether Stocks Hill fills those criteria, particularly around utilisation rate of at least 80%, etc. Thank you.
I'm really sorry. Can you just repeat the last bit of what you said? So I'm looking at the section that you referred to in the papers. What was your question?
Yes, so paragraph 9A says retained buildings will have a target utilisation rate of at least 80%. I just wondered how that fit with Stocks Hill currently, when you're considering whether it fits with the strategic context of the decision-making process.
Carla reliably tells me that on the 3 days that it is used for the mental health groups, utilisation is below 50%.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to let Councillor Blackburn come in a second time because I'm feeling good like that today.
It's a quickie. A question for Norman. What do you think about the alternatives?
The alternatives. I'll start with New Wortley Community Centre. If a service user hasn't got an LS12 postcode, they're not entitled to take any part in any of their activities within the community centre.
Sorry, Norman. I don't understand that comment at all. Just like, so if it's an LS12 postcode, anyone in Leeds I can use a community centre in LS12 if I want to. I don't live in LS12. I just trying to be factual based, Norman.
Factual. New Wortley Community Centre, we can use the cafe. If we don't have an LS12 postcode, we can't take part in any of the activities within the community centre. The one-stop centre, we're in a basement and we're not being given the same level of service that we get just now. The letters that we've received as service users in December and February tells us there will be no reduction in the level of service. Little Owls building across the road from Stocks Hill believe that Little Owls are being closed down, so if we move in there, how long are we going to be there? It's not a suitable building for us. The one stop during the summer holidays, children that's receiving free school meals get served their meals in the basement. Now, if we're in there for 2 days over the lunch period, is it a suitable place for us to be there when there are kids running about being fed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I can't see anyone else indicating at this point. I do think just for follow-up action, we need to, whatever the outcome of today, we need to follow up about whether this point that you've made, Norman, if a community centre isn't letting you use it because of your postcode is the wrong number, I think that's concerning, and we should write to them. So we'll do some digging on that. Whatever the outcome of this, we'll do some digging on that. Okay, so we've now moved to the end of the question period. So the next stage of this meeting will be to It says, once board members have completed their questioning, I will invite Councillor Arif and Caroline Barr to provide brief closing statements, and then I'll invite Councillor Cunningham to provide her closing comments as well. So I'll start with Councillor. Do you want to go first or second, Councillor Arif, out of you and Caroline? So start with Councillor Arif, then Caroline, and then Councillor Cunningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I just following on from Councillor Anderson, I also want to thank Norman. It isn't easy to come in front of scrutiny. So thank you, Norman, for your views, and I have listened to them. I mean, look, as Caroline said earlier, we're very mindful of the impact and change this will have on some individuals. For some, it will work better for them, and we've got evidence of that. Some say, going to Horsworth will actually work out better for them. Recognising that for some, particularly in Stocks Hill, there was a challenge and Horsworth may have been a bit too far. I'm really pleased that our officers have identified 3 localised buildings, the Armley Hub, the Children's Centre, as well as the Leisure Centre, and then the fourth one being New Wortley Centre as alternative sites for provisions. And I'm hoping between those sites we're able to get an offer that works for everybody. What I will also say is we will continue to work with our service user, continue to listen to feedback, and officers will ensure that they work with the service users to ensure and mitigate the impact this will have on some individuals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So yes, just to reiterate how difficult this is, a decision for adults and health to make, because our primary focus is around the well-being of people who need care and support. That's always the starting position from our perspective. And as such, this has proved to be difficult. It's proved difficult also because it's been a protracted process around the decision-making, going to exec board, going to full council, and then coming here. What we do know is that a lot of people have said they just want a decision, they want to get on with it, they want to get on with moving to a different base. And some people are actually really looking forward to an alternative bases as well. So we're hoping that the small number of people, and there are 7 people that we know remain unhappy about the proposal to cease providing the service from Stocks Hill. We really hope that we can move now towards working with those 7 individuals to really look at viable alternatives that work for them and that are helpful for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to everyone for their input, particularly Norman. I would just ask scrutiny to consider the elements that have been brought forward in terms of the consultation process, and in terms of the fact that it may be 7 people who are able to be vocal about their concerns and able to present a physical protest, but there are numerous people on the signatory list that have also expressed their concerns. I think that we are aware that the building of Stocks Hill is going to be still in use, and we request that the services currently provided in Stocks Hill could be used alongside those. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking. I'm just going to let us have a little bit of legal advice from Nicole. So over to you.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate for the board what the decision is that you're being asked to consider today. So it's not actually about the principle of what decision has been made. It's about the process as to how the decision has been made. And I know there has been some questions, understandably, around the decision and why, but it is about the process as to how that decision was arrived at. So the grounds that you've been asked to consider as to whether they have been followed are proportionality, and when you're looking at whether a decision is proportionate, you need to consider whether the decision that was reached was so much out of proportion to the needs of the situation that it would be considered unreasonable or irrational. In relation to consultations, there are 4 main guiding principles as to how a consultation should be carried out. And the main things are that the consultation must be at a time when the proposals are still at a formative stage. So we've heard that service users were given a proposal. That is entirely okay and appropriate because you have to start somewhere with regard to the consultation. It's more about whether you've got to look to make sure that the consultation was open and that the decision maker was open to listening to feedback that was received. There must be sufficient reasons given and information so that anyone who was consulted understood what the situation was, that adequate time is given for the consultation and response, and that the product of the consultation has had regard to feedback given. So they're the four main things that would mean that consultation was properly carried out. Ground 3 was for clarity of aims and desired outcomes. And that's just to show that there should be a really clear objective as to why the decision needs to be made, what is trying to be achieved, and that the outcome reflects what that objective was. And finally, Ground 4, brought by Councillor Cunningham, was an explanation of the options considered and the details of the reasons for that decision. So were adequate reasons put before Executive Board to explain why the decision or the recommendation was reached. So they're the main parameters around whether a decision has been made correctly. So I thought that might be helpful for Board.
Thank you very much. Okay, so move on to decision making. So we've got two options in front of us. In line with good practice decision making within public bodies, any decision needs to be proposed and seconded, and then we'll need a vote on that. So I'm open to anyone moving or one of those two motions, either option 1, which was to release the decision for implementation, or option 2, recommend the decision be reconsidered.
Please, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, thank you, Councillor Bromley. Yeah, and just to clarify, I'm just being told I need to clarify, Councillor Gibson, that you are saying you're moving option 1 on the basis of resolution 125B, C, D and E. Yes, it's very clear on that, is Councillor Gibson, so thank you. Good, okay, so I'm going to move to a vote. I'm going to do it by a show of hands. So this is a vote on whether we release the decision for implementation. So if all those in favour, please put your hand up and I'll count. Okay, thank you. All those against? Okay, thank you. So, as Chair, I'm going to announce the result as that motion has been passed. As everyone could see, clearly the vote was made. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Start with board members. Thank you for coming. I know putting a meeting in the diary short notice is hard work to get here, but that's the nature of calling process, and it's important that we do that. So thank you for coming. Thank you to Norman and Lou Cunningham for coming and articulating your position, and thanks to the officers and Councillor Arif for coming and putting the council position forwards. And with that, I'm going to close the meeting and wish everyone a good day. Thank you very much.